Most building designs are a missed opportunity because designers overlook the three critical steps for ensuring a building is truly sustainable that should be baked into every single building project that you design. So in this video, I'm going to show you the exact repeatable sustainable design system that I use on every project that I work on, saving tens of thousands of dollars of energy bills for my clients while still being on budget. And yes, it will work for your building as well. As a bonus, I have created a free PDF summarizing the process, which you can download and start implementing this straight away. The link is in the description below. So to understand this process, we're going to use a pretty unremarkable building as a case study. This is Roundhill Primary School, a primary school in Nottingham in the UK. And the block we're focusing on is a simple rectangular two-story building with classrooms and a corridor. The brief is simple. The client wants to replace the gas boiler that the school has been using for heating and create an extension at the back with additional classrooms. So we're assuming that the extension is not built yet and we're creating the new extension. So the first critical step of this process is to reduce. And to understand this concept, imagine that you were on holiday exploring the Moroccan desert and you wanted to stop for lunch. And you had two options available to you: a food place in a glass house or in an open pavilion in a tent. Which one would you go for? Of course, you'd go with the tent because it provides you with the two important things that you need most in that particular climate, and that's shading and ventilation. A glass house would simply intensify the heat, which obviously you don't want. And that's what we're trying to create with this step. We're trying to recreate that desert effect where we're creating a structure that works with its environment, not against it. So that means that before we start thinking about any fancy technology that we could replace the gas boiler with, we need to ensure that the building that we are designing is not fighting against its environment. We need to reduce the energy it needs in the first place before we can supplement it with more. So, how do we do this? There are 5 critical elements to this process, and you're not allowed to skip any of them. The first element is establishing what kind of climatic conditions we are dealing with. And if you only design in one area, you only need to do this once and it will apply to all your building projects. So is it a hot and dry climate? Is it a cold and humid climate, etc.? The strategies that work in humid heat are completely different than the strategies that work in dry heat. I have a whole video on this and I'll leave a link down below to it. But how do you analyze your climate and establish the best strategies for that particular climate? There are many ways, but my favorite is this simple free app called Climate Consultant. All you have to do is download a weather file closest to your site, load it in the tool, and it gives you the best strategies for your climate and building type, and it even gives you a percentage of how many hours in a year your strategy will cover in terms of comfort. Then it tells you this is the percentage of the remaining hours in a year where you will inevitably require heating or cooling or whatever you need. But we will come on to that later. So after this step, we know our building could use sun shading for the windows, passive solar gain with high mass, and natural ventilation / wind protection. Okay, so we keep note of this. Now we look at what is available to us on site that will allow us to implement this. This is what you know as a site analysis. But the difference here is that we are analyzing with intent. We already have a direction and we're going in with a plan. What I do here is that I go to the CBE Climate Tool website, I upload the exact weather file I used in Climate Consultant, and then I look at 2 important things. The first one is the sun path chart that gives me exactly the altitude, angle of the sun in summer and in winter, and I'll show you in a bit why that is important. And the other one is the wind roses, and that shows me the wind speed and direction for winter and for summer again. Now we plot this information on our site and we look for other constraints or opportunities such as shading from an existing building or trees, or wind protection from bushes, or a natural slope in our building site, etc., anything that we can harness. Now we need to look at the nature of our building. And this is really important, very critical, because once we start picking our ideal strategies to implement in our design, we need the strategy to serve both climate and the brief at the same time. Good design solves one problem, great design solves two or more problems at the same time. So in our case, it's a school. It's a building that is used mostly during the day and where kids are learning and interacting. It needs to be comfortable during the day, and critically, it needs to be well lit. Daylight is very important here, unlike a cinema, for example, where we actually don't want any daylight. And then you gather all the information, including things that are important to your client. Okay, so now we move on to the next step, which is finding case studies of buildings that have already solved our problem. The thing is with good design, which took me a long time to actually get, is that you don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time. There are an estimated 2.75 billion of buildings around the world. Not all of them are well designed, but chances are, whatever the problems or the constraints of your projects, somebody has already found a solution for it. And that's really the secret. All you have to do to create a great design is to apply the right set of solutions to your specific problem. The website I love going to for this is the 2030palette.org. It has case studies from all around the world implementing the best proven environmental strategies on building projects. In my case, I have classrooms that are facing south, so I'm looking for both good daylighting and shading. After shopping around on this website and going down a few rabbit holes, it's clear that my best strategy here is light shelves, because I need to maximize daylight inside, but also provide shading during the summer. For thermal mass, I could do two things. I could increase the insulation of my building with external wall insulation and ensure that the new extension has very good insulation. And I could also add green roofs if the budget allows. Okay, so step 5 is the exciting bit, is when you finally get to select your strategies and when all of that work comes together. So we're thinking about climate, we're thinking about project brief, the site constraints and opportunities, and the budget at the same time. So, for example, if we go ahead with extended light shelves with cantilevered shading, we want to ensure that the length of that shading will allow the sun to enter during the winter and be blocked during the summer. And that's why we noted the altitude of the sun so that we can gauge the right angles. For ventilation, we could ensure we have openings that are facing the prevailing winds in summer to harness the winds and create that cross ventilation, and that can be closed during winter. And we could also ensure these windows on the north side of the classrooms are openable to create the stack effect where heat naturally rises to the top, and add some roof windows in the extension to achieve the same effect. Now, this is the bare minimum, but depending on your client's brief and interest and budget, you could pitch some more interesting ideas. If they want to reduce their energy bills even more, you could pitch an earth-air tunnel. If they care about aesthetics, you could pitch a green roof, which not only is great for thermal mass, but also for biodiversity, for rain collection, etc. If they want the school to be more high-tech, you could pitch automatic windows and automatic openings. The possibilities are absolutely endless, and it's a conversation that you have with your client right at the beginning of a building project to really understand what they care about. Then your job becomes to tailor those sets of solutions to meet your client's wants and needs and budget, and package them in a way to sell them rather than advocating for the environment, which, let's face it, not all clients care about. Okay, so now we've done all of this work, but we still have 2 more steps in this system, and arguably this next step is not technically our job to execute, but we want to be a big part of that conversation, and that's because all the 3 steps are interconnected and they interact with each other. So in this step, we optimize. And remember that 50% of hours in the year that could not be covered by passive strategies alone, Now we need to cover them with what we call active strategies, which are heating, cooling, and ventilation that require electricity. Here, to replace the gas boiler, we could use an air source heat pump, we could use a ground source heat pump, we could couple that with a mechanical ventilation system with heat recovery if the budget allows. We could connect to district heating if that is available to us. But if we want to keep it simple and cost effective, an air source heat pump, which could be connected to the existing radiators in the existing school building, coupled with underfloor heating for the new extension, are the best solutions that now need to be properly sized by a mechanical and electrical engineer. Okay, great. So now we reduced and we optimized. So what else could we do to complete this process? And the answer is generate. So as much as we can, we want to be able to generate electricity on site to cover at least some of the energy we're spending in those active strategies that we specified in step 2. And there are only 2 common options for this size project. The first one is a small wind turbine, and this is implemented in areas that receive quite a lot of wind and maybe not so much sun. The second option is solar panels, and the way I like to get an idea of how much energy the building could generate is to go to this website, PVGIS. I will leave a link down below to it. I enter a few details, including the roof size of my project, the location, etc., and it gives me approximately how much electricity the site could generate. Again, you can adjust this depending on the budget, etc., and it's really cool to be able to tell your client the electricity generation potential of their project and give them numbers and give them some options. Let me know in the comments down below if you'd like me to do a video walking you through the process. The great thing about this 3-step system is that you can tailor it to your project and to your client's budget. And not only it's repeatable and therefore saves you time and guarantees similar results every time, but also once your client can see that you have a clear method, a clear plan, they're more likely to trust you as an authority and buy into your sustainable design, which is so important for its success. So make sure you grab your free copy summarizing this system and watch this video next, which explains why different climates require different passive strategies. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.